Oh, greetings, everybody. Keith here.
There are good people in every nation across this earth who work for all kind of corporations. A corporation derives from the word corp, a dead thing that has no life. It is only the people that give it life. You only have an enemy if you see them as an enemy. And no corporation can actually take action against you. It is the men and women who work for these corporations. We cannot go out here and say we are going to be the enemies of this or that. I believe there are even good people who work within U.S. court. So therefore, I can never see people as enemies because these corporations can do nothing on their own. And there are good ones standing on the wicked ones over here.
Okay. Well, let's get this ball rolling. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Remember, if you've been with me from the first three Zooms here on this, we've been going over the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. And last week we ended up with sections, titles 26 through 30, in where it tells us the simple agreement of the contract, how it's constructed. 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30 tell us how to contract with them. So we're going to finish up with this tonight on the amendments to the convention and the general regulations and the agreements. And I think we kind of briefly went over this last week, but to reiterate, the convention, the general regulations, and the agreements define the conditions to be fulfilled for the approval of proposals which concern them. The acts referred to in paragraph 1 shall enter into force simultaneously and shall have the same duration as from the day fixed by Congress for the entry into force of these acts. The corresponding acts of the preceding Congress shall be abrogated. And if you were here last week in that 26 through 30, what we're going to do is we're going to adopt this Constitution. We're going to make our amendments to it, which is our little line item through and overwrites with our footnotes, whatever we need to do. And that is going to be our entry into force, is we're going to ratify the document by fixing it. And that's what ratify means, is to fix. As from the day fixed by Congress for the entry into force of these acts, the corresponding acts of the preceding Congress shall be abrogated. And when they talk about Congress, Congress specifically means walk with. So when we adopt their document and then fix it, which is our ratification, they then are supposed to take a look at it. Okay, everything's okay. They have to accept the ratifications. If there are improvements upon the document, then they have to be in agreement by reason and logic. So we are actually the ones that are ratifying it, handing back to them for agreement of the ratification. And then it talks about settlement of disputes, which is arbitration. It says it's arbitration. So even in this trust, as we see in the modern contractarian basis of trust law, everything in the trust is operated by a contract. If we're party to the contract, then we are with the contract and we are subject to that contract. if we are beneficiaries of the contract in that trust, then we don't need the contract. We just have to state the contract that's already previously stated and how we're the beneficiary. And that's what we're doing when we adopt that record and then correct it. We're correcting it, the wording, to show that we are the beneficiary. We're not buying and selling anything. We're the end user. So no matter what anybody else buys or sells, as the end user, we get to use the same right of transit. Section 3, Article 33 is coming into operation and duration of the Constitution. So this is what we're talking about here when we make our amendments, ratify it, settling all the disputes within, and now we give our final judgment, where we come into operation and duration of the Constitution. Whereas in our aspect, we're actually bringing the Constitution into operation and duration of what is true for us. And this is why it's got to be done on an individual basis. The final protocol to the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. At the moment of proceeding to signature, of the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union concluded this day, the undersigned plenipotentiaries have agreed the following. And then it tells about accession to the Constitution. The member countries of the Union which have not signed the Constitution may accede to it at any time. Instruments of accession shall be addressed through diplomatic channels to the government of the country in which the seat of the Union is situated, and by that government to the governments of the member countries of the Union. Now, when we look up here at Article 2, it tells us member countries of the Union are countries which have a membership status at the date on which this Constitution comes into force, and countries admitted to membership in accordance with Article 11. Article 11 states, accession or admission in Section 5, Article 11, Section 5, accession or admission to membership shall be notified by the government of the Swiss Confederation. That's the government of the Union, is the Swiss Confederation, to the governments of its member countries. And that is uniform, where it says member countries of the Union which have not signed the Constitution may accede to it at any time. Instruments of accession shall be addressed through diplomatic channels to the government of the country in which the seat of the Union is situated. That's the Swiss Confederation. And by that government, the Swiss Confederation, to the members or to the governments of the member countries of the Union, which is what we just got done reading in Section 5 of Article 11. So then it says, in witness whereof the undermentioned plenipotentiaries have drawn up this protocol. So when we adopt that record and then ratify it and then sign it, we are signing, it says, in witness whereof the undermentioned plenipotentiaries. We're telling them we have grabbed that power of the seat of government of being a plenipotentiary. We are managing all of our own affairs, which shall have the same force and the same validity as if its provisions were inserted in the text of the Constitution itself. Pay attention. Same force and same validity as if its provisions were inserted in the text of the Constitution itself. And they have signed it in a single original, which shall be deposited in the archives of the government of the country in which the seat of the Union is situated. Again, the Swiss Confederation. A copy thereof shall be delivered to each party by the government of the country in which Congress is held. This is the United States of America, Congress. So once we address the Swiss Confederation with our agreement to the Constitution and other elements, which I'll show you here when we're done, then the Swiss Confederation is supposed to give a notice to the other governments of the members of the Union. Done at Vienna, the 10th of July, 1964. End of document. So, and yes, this is being recorded. Just like my other Zooms, I will post it when it's done and it will show up on my Facebook page. Everything is downloaded so I can freely post them on other pages. And Ami, I'll be posting this in Lawful Living as well when I'm done. I've been bad at that. I'm trying to switch over. I'm just not used to the other site yet. I'm still getting used to it. Don't know why. So let's look at the next ones. This site here is Acts of the Union and Other Decisions, UPU, Universal Postal Union. And that first link in the chat section is the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. This is Acts of the Union and Other Decisions. And it says permanent acts. The Constitution is this basic act of the Union. It contains the organic rules of the Union and is not subject to reservations. The Constitution currently includes 10 additional protocols. That's like the Constitution of the United
I
States.
don't think it's going to get as bad as it. I don't think it's going to get as bad as it's supposed to.
Bobby?
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. General regulations embody those provisions which ensure the application of the Constitution working on the Union. And this is these protocols that they're adding on are the same thing as the Constitution written in its original form. And then they came back and added the Bill of Rights. And that's what we're doing, is we're going to institute our own Bill of Rights when we ratify these documents. And then it says the non-permanent acts. They've got permanent acts and non-permanent acts. And if you remember in that Constitution, we read, it says, have signed it in a single original. So when we ratify it, we're going to make a single original and they're going to file that in the Swiss Confederation. In the meantime, the public document here as the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union will remain the same in the public. Our affixing of our footnotes and stuff is not going to go public because that's private. So it's going to remain in a private file. This is where we put the non-permanent acts. We are ratifying it and making it non-permanent facts because it's only individual facts that apply to us. And we're not going to be permanent. The Constitution itself is permanent. It's going to keep going, and we can use it and institute it for our benefit as well as the benefit of our successor heirs. And that's important. It goes over the Postal Payment Service Agreement. That's Postal Payment Services Agreement. If it's already prepaid, we don't need to make a Postal Payment Services Agreement. We just need to issue the irrevocable letter of credit, letting them know that it's already recognized through the Swiss Confederation, and the Congress has been notified. Now the post office is going to be notified. Models. Remember, I talked about the Chapter 15 bankruptcy, in where they follow the international model bankruptcy rules. This is the same thing with the UPU. They have models. And it says member countries that did not sign the acts adopted at Congress are required to accede to them as soon as possible. Otherwise, you are deemed to be a warring factor. Okay? These models are actually peace agreements. In accordance with Article 26 of the UPU Constitution, the instruments of ratification of the Constitution and the additional protocols thereto, and where appropriate, of approval of other acts of the Union must be deposited as soon as possible with the Director General of the International Bureau. Director General of the International Bureau of the Swiss Confederation. That's who you address at the Swiss Confederation. Okay. So let's go back to 26 of the UPU. Remember, I told you 26 was the start of the actual construction of your own contract with them. And it tells us notification of ratifications and other forms of approval of the acts of the union. So who's approving it? Who's giving them notification of ratifications? Us. So that's the Article 26. We are going to enter into an agreement and enter with force. That enter is very important. With force is very important. The force isn't necessarily a warring force. It's the force of peace. The instruments of ratification of the Constitution and where appropriate of approval of the other acts. Again, it says where appropriate of the Union shall be addressed as soon as possible to the government of the Swiss Confederation, and by that government to the governments of other member countries. So by the addressing of the Swiss Confederation through the Director General of the International Bureau. Okay, and then it gives you the instruments. There's 3 of them, just like there's the 3 instruments of the United States. And I see somebody's got a hand up.
Yes, may I?
You may.
First of all, thank you, Keith. I really appreciate this teaching, this presentation. So I'm curious, does the Swiss Confederation, do they have their own constitution and guidelines, or is this what they're following themselves? Or is that another?
Yeah, this would be, I would have to look into it. I haven't thought about that question. So that's a good question. I will look into it. But
or I can try to look into it as well too, because you know how normally with trusts, what they've come to start doing is making like one a management trust. Do you know what I mean?
right. And that's what
Yeah.
we're seeing here. And that's why I say that's a good question, because this would actually be the as we see, the seat of government of the world. They're telling
Right.
us
So,
everybody's got to go to the Swiss Confederation. So that would be the primary trust. And then if the Swiss people themselves wanted to amend to it, they would have to, obviously, like America, have to have a constitution of their own as well, so that they could then transfer the beneficiary status of the international form to their own country as well. So I imagine they've got their own constitution, and it's written up a lot like the American Constitution.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm curious now that I'm starting to be able to see more clearly how it's like a model all the way up and down. So, now I'm like, okay, well, there must be an executive branch, right? And the congressional branch. Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
see,
That there's
this one
3?
document, when we look at it,
Uh-huh.
this is an executive document, is an execution.
Okay.
And that one document has the legislation in it, as well as the judicial monetary values. So it's all 3 in 1 in this document.
Oh, so it's kind of like modeled like the Libra code, how it's like all encompassing in one. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I yield.
Okay, and then now that we know it's the Swiss Confederation and we have to address it to the Director General of the International Bureau, what we're addressing is the instrument of accession. Oops, that's the wrong one, ain't it? Okay, there we go. This is it, folks. 1 page. This is your 1-page accession to the Union. That's how easy it is. Watch this. 3 documents. Instrument of accession. Whereas Keith Orland Little, faith-based union, a member, a international union. We've got to change the wording. We're gonna line item through this and overwrite it. Has not signed indicate the act not signed at Congress, has not signed the United States Constitution, but wishes to accede, or the Universal Postal Union, and that's the one we're going to address, has not signed the Universal Postal Union, but wishes to agree, not to accede to it, but agree with it on the basis in particular of Article 9 of the 8th edition additional protocol to the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, adopted at Geneva on 12th of August 2008. So we'll have to look that up and make sure that we're in agreement with that particular part right there. The government of Keith Orland Little Faith-Based Union, having seen and examined the Universal Postal Union, or Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, hereby declares that it agrees with it and undertakes conscientiously to observe the provisions contained therein, in witness whereof. So it's real simple. And then signature to be signed by head of state, head of government, or minister of foreign affairs. And so I would use my ratification of respectfully, :stop, Chaplain Keith, : stop. That's all they need. That's all they need. Then the next one, when we look at that site, it tells us instrument of ratification or approval. That's not it either. What happened here? There we go. Universal Postal Union again, instrument of ratification of the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. Additional protocol to the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union. Whereas the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, additional protocol to the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union was adopted, opened for signature, etc., at place on date. And whereas the said Constitution of the Universal has been signed on behalf of the government of Keith Orland Little Faith-Based Union on such and such a date. Now, therefore, I, Keith, and again, I would put Chaplain Keith, declare that the government of Keith Orland Little Faith-Based Union, having considered the above mentioned Constitution of Universal Postal Union, ratifies the same and undertakes faithfully to conduct and handle the stipulations therein contained. In witness whereof I have signed this instrument of ratification at such and such, and again, respectively or respectfully, : stop, Chaplain Keith, : stop. So we see two very simple documents. And then the third one is instrument of acceptance or approval of the acts of the Union other than the Constitution of Universal Postal Union protocol to the Constitution of Universal Postal Union. So other than the Constitution, instrument of acceptance or approval of the acts of the Union other than the Constitution, and this is where we make our special clauses. Whereas the title of the treaty, convention, agreement, etc. So this is where we're going to name the treaty that we're following under: Treaty of Berne, Peace Treaty, whatever. Adopted, open for signature at such and such, whereas the said title treaty has been signed on behalf of the government. Now, therefore, I name and title the head of state, head of government, or minister, declare that the government of Keith Orland Little Faith-Based Union, having considered the above mentioned treaty, approves the same and undertakes faithfully to perform and carry out, undertakes faithfully to conduct and handle the stipulations therein, in witness whereof I have signed this instrument of approval at such and such again. So you see three very, very simple little instruments and just a little bit of comprehension. And this should open the door for the postmasters to open up that master trust account. No problem. No issue. Because if they do, you go to the director of the International Bureau. Is that making sense to everybody?
It does to me, mostly, yeah.
It's a simple contract. That's all it is. And your simple contract is right here. Article 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. And then in 31, it tells you about how you go about amending the convention, regulations, and agreements. And that's those three documents we just went over. The Constitution, which is the instrument of accession. The instrument of ratification is your amendments added to it and stuff. I don't know why I keep doing that. And then the instrument de ratification de approbation. This is how you appropriate it through the treaty. So you can have a treaty, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. Same way as the United States. Exact same thing. It's just in the like wording. You just have to recognize the wording. Acts of the current cycle. Notice it's a cycle. Remember, I told you we're going to die and we're going to end, and we have to be able to provide a continuation of that cycle, because the cycle itself is perpetual. It's just going to have different currency. It's going to flow at different rates. Ninth additional protocol to the Constitution of Universal Postal Union. Constitution of Universal Postal Union is in regards to the federal additional protocol to the general regulations of the Universal Postal Union. Declarations made on signature of the acts. Rules of procedure of Congress. Universal Postal Convention final protocols. Postal Payment Service Agreement. And final protocol to the Postal Payment Services Agreement, and decisions of the 2016 Istanbul Congress, other than those amending the acts. Other than those amending the acts. And it tells you. And I believe I already dropped this link in the box or in the chat section, but here it is again. This page right here, this one here is going to help you out tremendously, along with the Constitution. And you'll notice the Constitution is only 9 pages. Very simple. The problem is going to come when we get into the Universal Postal Union on the local level with the United States. These postmasters and postal workers are not familiar with this. So we're just going to have to learn how to use their system in accordance with this. And that means we have to be in Congress with the general the Director General of the International Bureau, the Postmaster General, and ourselves. Notice everything is the general. Postmaster General, Attorney General, Comptroller General, and good old Janet Yellen, the Secretary of Finance, and then the Director General of the International Bureau. You've got to generally be able to comprehend what they have to know and be able to portray it to them. But as we see, all of their rules and regulations, them 8 million, that's all that's doing is confusing them. When we bring it down to the simple documents that we've seen before us today, it really is that simple, people. The next one is the Articles of Agreement of the International Monetary Fund. This one I am just passing along. It's 136 pages, but if you ever have any questions, you can bring it up on your thing here. Go up to the top right-hand corner, open your window, hit find, and find anything you want. And it mentions the word trust in here twice, and it may not necessarily be just the word trust, because here the first incident shows us in Article 9, status, immunities, and privileges. It says to enable the fund to fulfill the functions with which it is entrusted. The status, immunities, and privileges set forth in this article shall be accorded to the fund in the territories of each member. The second one says, for the purpose of this paragraph, overdue obligations to the fund consist of overdue repurchases and charges in the general resources account, overdue principal and interest on loans in the special disbursement account, overdue charges and assessments in the special drawing rights department, and overdue liabilities to the trust fund as trustee. Very specific wording here, folks. And this is the only two places that it mentions in 136 pages. They're articles of confederation. And these are the two that we need to be particular relative with. But you'll notice this one says fund, the fund consists of general resources account, special disbursement account, the special drawing rights department, and overdue liabilities to the fund as trustee. The fund shall not allocate special drawing rights under this schedule to those participants that have notified the fund in writing prior to the date of the allocation of their desire not to receive the allocation. You see what happened there? You have to notify them in writing that you don't want anybody using your special drawing rights. And that's what's happening. Everybody's drawing your name on a piece of paper, adding numbers and dollar signs, saying, here we go. We got special drawing rights. This guy gave it to him, or gave us permission. He gave us all the information telling us we could do it. If at the time an allocation is made to a participant under 1, 2, or 3 above, the participant has overdue obligations to the fund. The special drawing rights so allocated shall be deposited and held in an escrow account within the special drawing rights department and shall be released to the participant upon discharge of all of its overdue obligations to the fund. And shall be released to the participant upon discharge of all of its overdue obligations to the fund. Wow. What's that telling you, folks? Special drawing rights being held in an escrow account shall not be available for any use and shall not be included in any calculations of allocations or holdings of special drawing rights for the purposes of the articles, except for calculations under this schedule. If special drawing rights allocated to a participant are held in an escrow account when the participant terminates its participation in the special drawing rights department, or when it is decided to liquidate the special drawing rights department, such special drawing rights shall be canceled. That's what we're looking for. We're going to cancel the special drawing rights. We don't need special drawing rights under their fund. For purposes of this paragraph, overdue obligations to the fund consist of overdue repurchases and charges in the general resources account. General resources account is what the United States is using, and it's the account operation that we use for a signature. And every time we use a signature, somebody's using drawing rights, and that's what we're going to cancel out. That way, nobody can make repurchases. See, the government, it's got all the property in abeyance. They've already purchased the property. When we place a signature on something, we are repurchasing it, and now it consists of an overdue charge. Overdue principal and interest on loans in the special disbursement account, overdue charges and assessments in special drawing rights department, and overdue liabilities to the fund as trustees. Remember, that's what we just read down below. or no, that's the one. As trustee, we're for the purposes of this paragraph, overdue obligations consist of overdue repurchases. So do we have the re-obligation, or is it originally an obligation based on a original purchase? So we have to think about this stuff. With that, I'm going to yield. We've got the floor is open the rest of the meeting. Wanted to make sure I covered this stuff real quick. And like I said, the links are in the comment section. So anybody that has any questions, feel free to ask.
I have a question. I'm curious if it ever occurred to you when you were an orphan and you had those 93 court cases that one day you'd be studying international world treaties. I mean, I really appreciate you. I would just wanted to say that I'm going to do some research about the Swiss Confederation. And I noticed that they mentioned the Geneva Convention as well, which I
Yes.
haven't studied thoroughly either. And then there was another one too. It's in my notes that I need to look up. Yeah, that IMF. I'll read those in the next, hopefully, in this lifetime, and try to contribute to this.
Yeah, most of my reading consists of skimming through and catching pertinent phrases, terms, and conditions. But there are certain special documents that I will go through and read again and again and again. But as you can see today, it's really not a whole lot of information that we need to know to get rid of the, they said you can grow up to be president someday. It's like you just said, who would have imagined back when I was a kid, I would have surpassed the presidency and started writing treaties. So
it's amazing. You're a gift, literally, Keith. I give thanks for you every day.
it's all him, baby. So anyway, I hope everybody's realizing this really isn't such a hard task when we get down to the basic elements of it. And like I said, the last couple of days, the main key is in that postal terms. It tells us the definition of key, and it starts out to press numbered keys or other identifiers. So let's learn what those other identifiers are in accordance with the numbers that we're keying in. And that's important. We key in the number first. And trust is always identified by a number. It is its primary element in order to then go and sort out the rest of the information within it. And guys, I see three of us here, me and two other people. And this is why it's so amazing. This is such simple stuff. And I'm sitting here watching this other Zoom with, however many people, and they want to sit there and keep arguing and questioning things when the answers are right before them and they're so simple. And that 9-page document, and here I am with two people and no questions, because it is that simple to understand. These people want to make an argument of it. So I appreciate you guys coming in and realizing it's not an argument, just a matter of finding the truth and making it simple. It's going to be a long road to haul, but like I said, it's something that each and every one of us has to do on an individual basis, because I can't do it for you. And if I can't do it for you, that means I can't do it for your whole house. I can't do it for your whole neighborhood. I can't do it for your whole town. It's an individual one by one thing. And it even tells us that in the thing. Amendments are added to it, but not placed on the public record, because we add it to our own. We have our own private communication, our own private Congress with the internal general, or the delegated general of internal affairs, or internal bureau, whatever it is. But
that's one of the things that I was finding interesting is becoming a member, by adopting a document, ratifying it, and presenting it back. What kind of obligations outside of what's laid forth is required? And if that suddenly it's like, well, okay, does this at that point, each man or woman who does this would literally become their own nation that's recognized worldwide.
Correct.
And through my research with other men who have done work at the post office, I mean, frequently they end up getting large slats of land to govern in the process. So, I just think that our creator, the Father that's in heaven, is so remarkable to create like such a live story right now. And
Oh yeah,
like the people that are
it's
it's like, go ahead.
it's one of those things, in my own trials here, in my own travels, my own surgeon in the last 5 years. If I'd have kept going the way my life was going before, I'd have had a lot of drama, but then the rest of life would have been ho hum going about my regular day. And today, each and every day is exciting because each and every day brings me new information and new knowledge that helps me advance my imagination to a greater concept. Not something, not of a greater internal will, but a greater concept for everything about the world itself. It's one of the things that helps me pull my ass out of this carnal bullshit. Anyway, we got less than a minute left to go. It's going to shut us down. So again, I thank everybody. I'll post the video as soon as it pops up with my PayPal link. Please share some love, and I'll see you again on Thursday, everybody. God bless. Love you all.
Bless you, love you too.
Bet you as well, John Thomas.